We, the jury, in the above entitled case, have found beyond a reasonable doubt the existence of the following statutory aggravating circumstances, to wit, 2 or more persons were murdered by the defendant by act or pursuant to one scheme or course of conduct, and the murder of 5 children 11 years of age or younger. Now recommend to the court that the defendant, Timothy R. Jones, Jr., be sentenced to death.
On the morning of September 6, 2014, a deputy in Smith County, Mississippi, was working a routine traffic checkpoint on a highway that sees ordinary vehicles carrying ordinary people going about ordinary lives. A dark Cadillac Escalade pulled through. The deputy noticed the driver immediately. Something was wrong. He described Jones as appearing very strange, agitated, the eyes of a man who had not slept properly in a long time. He asked Jones to step out of the vehicle. Before Jones had said a word about what was in the car, before any search had been conducted, before any question had been asked about the contents of the vehicle, the deputy smelled it. Anyone who has spent time in law enforcement knows that smell. You do not forget it, and you do not mistake it for anything else. Timothy Jones Jr. was arrested, initially on suspicion of driving under the influence and drug possession. But when investigators checked his South Carolina license plate, a different picture began to emerge. 5 children had been reported missing. Their father was the primary custodial parent. Their father was standing at a Mississippi traffic checkpoint smelling of decomposition. Jones was taken into custody. Investigators began questioning him. And over the course of that interrogation, Timothy Jones Jr. told them what had happened. He told them where the children were. He led police to a remote hillside near Camden, in Wilcox County, Alabama, where 5 black garbage bags had been left on a rural dirt road. Inside each bag was one of his children. Merah was 8 years old. Elias was 7. Nahtahn was 6. Gabriel was 2. Abigail was 1. They had been dead for 9 days. They had spent those 9 days in the back of their father's Cadillac Escalade as he drove through South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, stopping at gas stations, at stores, at checkpoints, telling anyone who asked about the smell that he had dead animals in the back. This is the story of Timothy Jones Jr., and it is also, because it must be, the story of 12 documented welfare visits, a system that knew, and 5 children who were left in danger until there was no danger left to protect them from. Timothy Ray Jones Jr. was born on December 28, 1981, in South Carolina. His mother, Cynthia, was 16 years old when she became pregnant. The marriage between his parents was volatile and short-lived. His father, Timothy Jones Sr., described his mother as violent and erratic, a woman whose behavior suggested significant, untreated mental illness. When his parents divorced, Timothy Jr. was placed in the primary care of his father. By his own family's account, he was a normal boy who had some behavioral difficulties growing up. He served time in prison in 2001 for burglary, car theft, and writing bad checks. After his release, he became a devout member of his church. He met a young woman named Amber Kaiser and married her in 2004 in Illinois. He enrolled at Mississippi State University and, in a trajectory that suggested genuine capability and determination, graduated in 2011 with a degree in computer engineering. He was hired by Intel in Columbia, South Carolina, earning a salary of approximately $71,000 per year. The picture at that point was one of a man who had come back from an early criminal record and built something real. A career, a faith, a family. Amber and Timothy had 5 children together over the following years. Merah, born in Pennsylvania. Elias and Nahtahn, born in Mississippi. Gabriel and Abigail, born in South Carolina. 5 children in 10 years. A busy, full household in an inexpensive trailer in Lexington County, in the suburbs of Columbia. But beneath the surface of the competent professional, something was fracturing. Amber Jones would later testify that her husband believed women should be seen and not heard, that he had wanted at one point what she described as a farm full of children, as though children were a possession, an extension of an identity he was constructing, rather than people with their own needs and fragility. He was controlling. The marriage became increasingly difficult. In 2013, the couple divorced. The family court gave Timothy Jones Jr. primary physical custody of all 5 children. What followed the divorce was, in retrospect, a documented accumulation of warning that the child protection system acknowledged and did not act upon decisively enough. Over the 3 years following the divorce, the South Carolina Department of Social Services conducted at least 12 visits to the Jones family home. 12. The concerns documented across those visits included dirty living conditions, neglect, physical discipline that crossed the line into abuse, and a father who was described, in the DSS's own words, as overwhelmed and posing a high risk of danger to the children. A safety plan was filed, then another. Concerns were noted. The children were consistently found to be clean and groomed during visits, a detail that caseworkers cited as a reason to leave them in place. But the home itself was in disarray, and the father's deteriorating mental state was clearly documented. In May 2014, one of the children reported that Jones had forced him to perform exercises as punishment, a form of physical discipline that had been specifically prohibited under an existing safety plan. The report was investigated. The children remained in the home. In early August 2014, less than 3 weeks before the murders, DSS conducted another welfare check. Caseworkers found the home in disarray. They described Jones as appearing overwhelmed. They left the children there. On August 13, 2014, the final DSS assessment before the murders was completed. 15 days later, all 5 children were dead. In the years following the murders, Amber Jones filed a civil lawsuit against the South Carolina DSS and a related agency, alleging that the state had failed to protect her children despite documented and repeated evidence of danger. The lawsuit described Timothy Jones Jr. as a well-documented child abuser. In 2024, the state of South Carolina settled the lawsuit for $1.5 million, paid to the children's mother. Both agencies denied liability. Their employees, they said, had acted properly throughout. 5 children were dead. The state paid $1.5 million, and both agencies said they had done nothing wrong. On the morning of August 28th, Timothy Jones Jr. went to work as a computer engineer. Throughout the day, he smoked spice, a synthetic cannabinoid, sometimes called synthetic marijuana, that can produce paranoia, psychosis, and extreme agitation, particularly in high doses. He smoked it at work to manage the stress of an approaching deadline on a major project. He left work in the late afternoon and went home. He smoked more spice. Then he drove to pick up his children. Abigail, 1 year old, and Gabriel, 2, were at a neighbor's house. Nahtahn, 6, Elias, 7, and Merah, 8, were in an after-school program at Saxe-Gotha Elementary School. Jones collected all 5 children, bought takeout from a local restaurant, and brought them home. At home, Jones discovered that an electrical outlet in the house was not working. He became convinced that Nahtahn had tampered with it. Nahtahn had an unusual interest in electricity, a curious, childlike fascination that a parent in a stable state of mind would have noted with gentle amusement. Jones, chemically altered and psychologically deteriorating, interpreted it as defiance. He began forcing Nahtahn to perform physical exercises as punishment. Squats, running, repetitive physical exertion in the heat of a South Carolina August evening. Nahtahn was 6 years old. He kept going until the boy collapsed. Jones's own confession, played in full to the jury during his 2019 trial, described what happened next. Nahtahn stopped moving. Jones, realizing what he had done, panicked. He told investigators he believed there was no way out, no alternative, no version of events in which what had just happened could be explained or survived. He strangled Elias with his bare hands. 2-year-old Gabriel and 1-year-old Abigail, whose necks were too small for his hands. He used a belt. 8-year-old Merah, the eldest, had been present in the house during some portion of what was happening to her siblings. A prison guard testified at trial that Jones had admitted to the guard that Merah saw him harming one of her brothers. He strangled her with his hands. She tried to run. He caught her. The phone records show that Amber Jones called the family home at 7:12 that evening and spoke to Nahtahn. That call was among the last communications from the house before everything went silent. It is possible that by the time Amber heard her son's voice, some of his siblings were already dead. That night, Timothy Jones Jr. attempted to take his own life by smoking 7 or 8 more bowls of spice. He passed out. He woke the following morning to find 5 dead children in the house and himself still alive. He wrapped each child's body in bed sheets. He stacked all 5 in the back seat of his Cadillac Escalade. He drove away. Over 9 days that followed, Jones traveled through South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, driving erratically, stopping at gas stations and stores, searching on his phone for local dump sites, landfills, and campgrounds. He purchased plastic bins, a jab saw, chemicals, goggles, and a dust mask at various points along the route. Evidence that, at various moments during the journey, he was considering methods of disposal more complete than abandonment. He bought bleach and poured it into the vehicle in an attempt to mask the smell of decomposition. He told people at gas stations that the smell was from dead animals in the back. On September 3rd, Amber Jones contacted authorities. She had not been able to reach her children since the evening of August 28th. They had missed a scheduled visit. She told police she could not reach her ex-husband and that something was wrong. Authorities listed the family as missing. They did not issue an Amber Alert because Timothy Jones Jr. was listed as the custodial parent, and the classification of a custodial parent traveling with their children did not automatically trigger an alert. The children had been dead for 6 days. On September 6th, Jones stopped at a checkpoint in Smith County, Mississippi. He had been driving for 9 days. The smell had built beyond any ability to explain or disguise. The deputy noticed it before the conversation began. The vehicle was searched. Jones was taken in for questioning. He confessed. He led investigators to the hillside in Wilcox County, Alabama, where he had left the 5 bags on a rural dirt road 2 days earlier. The children were found. DNA testing confirmed their identities. The trial of Timothy Jones Jr. began in May 2019, nearly 5 years after the murders, in Lexington, South Carolina. The prosecution played Jones's recorded confession in full on May 17th. The courtroom was silent throughout. Jurors heard him describe, in his own voice, what he had done to each child. The method, the sequence, the detail about the belt and the toddlers' necks. Defense attorneys argued that Jones had been in a state of acute psychosis driven by synthetic marijuana abuse, combined with a serious and documented underlying mental illness. They pointed to his mother's own severe mental illness as evidence of inherited vulnerability. They argued that he lacked the capacity to distinguish right from wrong at the time of the murders. The jury heard from forensic psychologists on both sides. They heard from Amber Jones, who described the custody arrangement, Jones's controlling behavior, and the deteriorating home environment. They heard from a former babysitter who described the harsh physical discipline the children had been subjected to before August 28th. They heard the children's names said aloud, again and again, throughout 3 weeks of testimony. On June 4th, 2019, the jury returned 5 guilty verdicts. 2 days later, the same jury unanimously recommended death. In sentencing, Amber Jones made a remarkable and deeply painful request. She asked for mercy for the man who had killed her children. She said she did not want another death. She said she believed the system had failed her family and that the failure was not Jones's alone. The judge sentenced Timothy Jones Jr. to death regardless. The South Carolina Supreme Court affirmed the conviction and sentence in March 2023. He remains on death row. Amber Jones received $1.5 million from the state of South Carolina in 2024. The settlement acknowledged, without any admission of liability, that something had gone wrong in the 12 documented visits that preceded the deaths of 5 children. But a settlement is not an answer. And $1.5 million is not 5 children. What the documented record of this case shows is that the danger was visible. It was written down in files. DSS workers visited that home and wrote the word overwhelmed. They wrote high risk. They wrote the children observed in dirty conditions. They wrote safety plan and came back to find the safety plan had not been followed and wrote another one. Nahtahn was 6 years old when he was worked to death by a man described in official documents as a high risk to those children. His death, its specific, documented, terrible mechanism, is inseparable from every visit that found danger and left. This is not an argument for a different verdict. It is an argument for a harder question. One the settlement did not answer, and the conviction did not answer, and the death sentence did not answer. When a system sees something and does not stop it, and 5 children die, what does accountability look like? And is $1.5 million, with both agencies denying liability, anywhere near it? Merah Jones was 8 years old. She was the eldest. In a household of 5 children under the age of 9, being the eldest means something. It means you are aware. It means you understand more than the others. It means that on the night of August 28, 2014, Merah Jones almost certainly knew something was happening to her brothers and sisters before it happened to her. She tried to run. Elias was 7. Nahtahn was 6. The boy whose curiosity about electricity, whose entirely ordinary childlike interest in how things worked, became the trigger for his own death. Gabriel was 2. Abigail was 1 year old. They spent 9 days in black garbage bags in the back of a Cadillac Escalade on the highways of the American South. Their father bought bleach to cover the smell. He told people they were dead animals. Timothy Jones Jr. will be executed by the state of South Carolina. The date has not yet been set. Their mother asked for mercy. She said she did not want another death to come from the deaths of her children. The jury said no. There is no version of this story in which anyone wins anything. There are only 5 names, Merah, Elias, Nahtahn, Gabriel, Abigail, that deserve to be said aloud and remembered. Not as case numbers, not as evidence, as children who were alive on the morning of August 28, 2014, and deserve to still be alive today.